Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Rory O'Toole. Welcome to the show. We've got a lot on the table for this episode. We're going to be delving into a very basic topic, how to find new music. It's a question that a lot of people have, and a lot of people, even if you have your own methods, your own hypothesis on how you're going to get your new music, it's always good to find and think about new ways to go about it as well. And after that, we're going to be discussing the first edition on the show of Story of a Song, which basically will go into the creation of a famous song, the origins behind the idea, how it was made, who it was written by, and the impact it had. Then we're going to get into the classic album of the week. This week we are talking about Mac Miller's Swimming. And then to end the show, we are going to have 10 songs of September that you should listen to. Month just started, but there's already 10 songs I think you should hear. So, without further ado, let's get into it. How do you find new music these days? There's so much damn music out there. Now that is the gift and the curse of the internet, is you have the sum of human knowledge and you have the center for just, you can find every song ever created practically. You can search the back catalogs of freaking Beethoven at this point, and there's new music being released not just every day, but seemingly every hour on sites, music sites everywhere, and especially on social media, YouTube, Spotify, all the usual places. So it's just frankly overwhelming right now. So I thought I'd create a little guide for the listeners about how I go about finding my new music and how I think that could apply to you guys as well. So, as streaming and all this other technology has disrupted everything in our culture, the way we discover new music and artists has become easier. It really has. You can really find anything these days, but as I talked about earlier, it's messier, it's more overwhelming, it's more unwieldy than ever before. If it's at our fingertips, if it's in our pocket, who's to say what to actually listen to? It's like, okay, I have the tools, but you're kind of paralyzed by the sheer amount of choice. So, here's a handy little guide for you guys. This is a GSMC Music Podcast exclusive, how to discover new music. Number 1, follow what you like. Not what is popular, not what your friends are listening to necessarily, not to what you've been conditioned to like. Be honest with yourself. Really evaluate the kind of music you connect with, the music that speaks to you, the music that is important to you. And once you circle that, And I don't care what it is. I do not shame any music taste. There is value in all forms of creative expression. So find the music you like and then just go nerd out on it. Like, read everything you can on the musician or on the genre. Go down rabbit holes. So, you like, let's say, Jay-Z. Go listen to every Jay-Z album he's released. Or you like Mozart. Go listen to as many performances of Mozart songs as you can. That's my best advice. And as you do that, you're naturally going to come across not only more Mozart or Jay-Z songs, for example, you're going to come across adjacent artists, people in their periphery, people in their genre, people with a similar sound. And that's going to open a whole new world to you, and you're going to have more new music than you know what to do with at that point. For example, you can go on Spotify and use the fans also like function that every artist has on their profile. So if you like artist A, you can go to their site or their profile page and go down to that fans also like, and then go to artist B and queue up their top song, and then do the same with artist C and so on, and then boom, you have all this new music, not only from the artist you like, but now you're discovering artists who are similar and that you're probably going to find some value in. So that's number one. Number two, word of mouth. The best way to discover anything, to get directions, to get the lowdown on a job or on any sort of situation is talk to people. Find out what's what. Ask them, what are you listening to? Who's your favorite artist? What's your favorite concert ever? What are you listening to at this moment? You have headphones in. What is that? Simple questions like that. Having conversations about music and around music, that is going to open your eyes to all kinds of new music that you otherwise wouldn't find. You have this other brain, this other human experience you can pull from. And the most logical people you can reach out to are your family members and your friends. Everyone's music taste is chiefly influenced by their family and their friends. Those are the two defining factors of anyone's music taste. If you grew up listening to elevator jazz, you're either going to hate it because you grew up listening to it too much, or you're going to have a soft spot for it because, man, that's what you grew up on. That brings back great nostalgic memories of when you were younger, when you were a kid, when you were with your family. And of course, friends are the people who sort of introduce you. Friends are our chosen family. They're going to have a huge influence on not only the way we behave, but the way we perceive the world. And one of the main ways we do that is through music. So word of mouth is another hugely important way to discover new music. Number 3, look at the playlist on streaming sites. Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Bandcamp, they all have playlists created by musicians you like, since chances are your tastes are probably going to align with the artist. If you like the artist, you'll probably enjoy their taste. Spotify has this collaborative playlist function, which allows you to curate playlists in real time with a group by sharing them with your friends, your family, whoever. That way your friend could potentially introduce you to a new song or artist on your playlist. This is kind of related to the word of mouth aspect of it. Also, the Spotify Discover Weekly, Apple Music recommendations, and even YouTube's sidebar algorithm are all great ways to discover new music. Also, Spotify Radio and daily playlists, that's a huge resource that you should definitely use, or at least try out, see if it works for you. It's there for a reason. It's updated every day, or with Discover Weekly every week. Check it out. And these streaming services, YouTube, they are machine learning, so every time you listen to something, they're taking that information in and trying to spit out similar sounding songs. So it's always trying to serve you and your taste. and that's really helpful in discovering new music. Number 4, and I know this doesn't really apply to our current pandemic moment, but in general, live shows, there's no better education than seeing the real thing. Just seeing live music, the actual visceral experience, connecting with an artist, feeling a song, feeling the music, that is the most powerful way and the original way that human beings connected with music, and it is inherent in all of us. Also, a lot of times you come for the headliner, but you can find a new favorite band in the opener. If you like a headliner, there's a good chance you're going to like the opener too, since the band has likely chosen them because they personally like that band. So some of my favorite artists I discovered when I was at a live show, and they were the opener for the main act I was seeing otherwise. So live shows just not only a great night out, but a great way to discover new music. Hopefully we can experience that again soon. Number 5, read the critics. I know they can be harsh and pretentious and pedantic, but they're critics for a reason. They have huge amounts of musical knowledge. They catalog music for a living. They're constantly evaluating the place of music. And maybe you reject the notion of art being evaluated because you're some purist and you think all creativity is created equal. I'm not going to argue with you there. That's a legitimate position, but somebody is going to evaluate art. And in evaluating art, you're oftentimes putting it in a context that we can understand or that connects with otherwise seemingly out of place songs. So that is the biggest variable that critics bring to the table, is they help you understand the music you're listening to, contextualize it, explain the history behind it. I think that's really, really valuable. So there's a lot of resources you can check out. One, Pitchfork. I mean, they publish 4 to 5 album reviews a day. Their best new music, the reviews, the Pitchfork playlist all provide you with not only new music, but that context for artists, for genres, for a music scene. Also, their staff picks can be quite good. The New York Times has great music writers, excellent features, fun series on YouTube where they visit the creation behind a particular song, and they have a really good newsletter. Recommend subbing to that. Vulture, which is part of New York Magazine, is an excellent pop culture website. I think it's pretty even-handed music coverage. They also have Craig Jenkins, who is one of the finest music writers at the moment. NPR Music has the great podcast, All Songs Considered. The Tiny Desk series is the closest you'll get to a live show at the moment. That is a fantastic series. And NPR in general, they're great at tracking news and summarizing the best music of the month, the week, or the year. Of course, Rolling Stone, that's a legacy stalwart. They're good for tracking the charts. And they also have these canonical lists that, like top 500 albums of all time, top 500 songs of all time. Those are designed to be argued for, but they help put into context, okay, what are the important songs? What are the greatest songs? That's a natural thing to be curious about. And you visit those lists and you're going to find some songs you're not familiar with. The New Yorker, they have great features. Passion of the Wise, that is basically underground hip-hop's New York Times, just one of the last great indie music websites out there. I cannot recommend that enough. Jeff Weiss is a fantastic writer. Please check that out if you are interested in hip-hop or just indie scene or culture coverage in general. Noisy, which is a Vice Media offshoot, brings the same quality as the New York Times, NPR, or Vulture, but from a more left-of-center perspective. It's got that punk rock roots that underpins Vice's founding, so definitely is a bit more opinionated and coming from a clear left point of view. But it's good to know where your music coverage, where their bias is coming from, and you're going to find some great stuff from that point of view. The Guardian music section, they have great reviews. Their global coverage is probably their biggest strength. They are based in the United Kingdom, but they do a really good job of covering literally every continent, the music output that's coming from everywhere. They do these monthly, like, global album of the month sort of reviews and features that's really great for discovering music just around the world. Pigeons and Planes, that is a complex media offshoot. You keep up with new music across all genres, especially alternative hip-hop, alternative rock, indie folk, and bedroom pop. They have a really good newsletter as well. Also, alternative sources, local outlets in the Bay Area like Thizzler for hip-hop, The Village Voice in New York, city weeklies in every major American city. SoundCloud, you can find gems on accounts ranging from anywhere from 1 million to under 100 followers. A lot of indie acts and hip-hop stars got their start on SoundCloud. Bandcamp is another great site and a great way to support artists. Their payout model is probably the best in the world. It's known for paying artists a hefty profit. They cut out the middleman. They collect 15% of digital sales and only 10% on other merchandise. And compared to Spotify's petty payout of less than a penny per stream, Bandcamp is much more profitable option for artists who want to sell directly to their fans. It's great for obscure stuff as well. You can follow artists and labels there. Check your feed for new releases. Really recommend Bandcamp. YouTube as well. You know, you got great reviews like Anthony Fantano's Needle Drop. He does a good job of covering all kinds of music. And YouTube in general, just for discovering music, it's really one of the best algorithms out there. And then you have channels like Polyphonic for music video essays, and My Analog Journal for grooves from around the world. Also, Shazam. If you hear a song you don't know what it is, I recommend you getting the Shazam app because it's supposed to hear a song and tell you what it is. You know, sometimes you don't know what the song is, you hear it on the radio, click, hit your Shazam, boom, there's new music right there. And lastly, podcast. You're listening to a podcast right now. GSMC Music. I don't want to be cocky, but, you know, I think it's one of the best out there. I don't know if you guys agree. But also, of course, there's podcasts like Song Exploder, Dissect, All Songs Considered, the Joe Budden podcast, Rock and Roll Archaeology, all great music podcasts. Also, I've alluded to this before, follow music producers. If you like a particular band, they're probably working with a specific producer all the time. Track down who else has worked with that producer, and you're going to find some great songs because that producer is probably going to specialize in that sound. And look, you like Haim? Turns out their producer also works with Vampire Weekend. Boom, you're going to have Vampire Weekend songs that you never knew existed before. That's just one example of how if you follow a producer, you're going to find new music. Last two, soundtracks, TV, movies, video games. Oftentimes great resources for music. Trust me on that. And I just want to leave you with this. New music doesn't necessarily mean new. Search the past. Become a sonic archaeologist. You can plumb the depths of an artist's entire catalog, discover songs you never knew about. Be a historian about this. If you want to understand rock music, you want to understand jazz, go and visit all the canonical artists, listen to everything they have, read up on the history of it. Be an active learner. And that is the key here. Be an active learner and be an active music listener. After the break, we will be getting into Story of a Song. Stick around for that.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the show. We just got through the Discover Music Guide. How to find new music. What's the best way? What is the path forward? Now we are going to get into the first iteration of this segment that I've been thinking a lot about. I'm very excited to bring it to you guys. It's called Story of a Song. So it basically takes you through a famous song, a well-known song, and I give you the origins of it, how it was created, what the inspiration was behind it, yada yada. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. And I thought, what better song to start with than Dancing Queen by ABBA. Perhaps the greatest pop song of all time. I think everyone from the age of 98 to 8 months old is familiar with Dancing Queen. In every country of the world. It is a immortal, long-living, long-lasting, after we're all long gone, Dancing Queen is still going to be blasting out of speakers somewhere on planet Earth. It is really one of the greatest pieces of pop music that we're ever going to witness. Now, just to give you guys the basics of the song, it's a Euro pop song sung by the Swedish group ABBA, and it's the lead single from their fourth studio album, Arrival. It was written by Benny Andersson, Bjorn Ulvaeus, don't know if I'm saying that right, and Stig Andersson. Andersson and Ulvaeus also produced the song Dancing Queen, and it was released as a single in Sweden on the 15th of August, 1976. And it's basically a Europop version of American disco music. Lyrically, the song concerns a visit to the discotheque, but it really approaches the subject from the joy of dancing and from a night out. The music video on YouTube has about 450 million views. It's probably going up every day. And it has become ABBA's most recognizable and popular song. It's the only ABBA song that ever hit number one in the United States. Hit number one in the United States on April 9th, 1977. And it stayed at number one for 1 week. I'm shocked that it was only 1 week. There must have been... I've not researched what came after that. It must have been a really killer song. I mean, the 70s was great for music, so... Not overly shocked, but man, knocking Dancing Queen off would take some skill. But though it was only number one for 1 week, it is obviously still massive, and it is the biggest ABBA song of all time. So let's get into the story of it. Benny Andersson, Bjorn Ulvaeus, ABBA's two chief songwriters and producers, they've been making hits in their native Sweden since they were young dudes, since they were teenagers in the 60s. One singer, Agnetha Faltskog, had hit number one in Sweden at age 18. The other, Frida Ligstad, was also releasing singles from a young age, but she didn't have a big hit until she actually started working with Andersson and Ulvaeus, who started writing songs together. Eventually, Faltskog married Ulvaeus and Ligstad married Andersson. So you're getting the chief songwriters, the chief producers, they married two singers. And so they all got together and said, you know what, we should form a group. And they named it ABBA. The first letters of all their first names mashed together. Now, ABBA was also a brand of pickled herring in Sweden. And if you know anything about Sweden, they love their pickled herring. When I was in Stockholm, I had some. It is delicious. So, anyways, the group had to license the name from the Pickled Herring Company. And not long after, ABBA established themselves, and they were huge all over the European continent and many corners around the globe. But they had yet to hit it big in America, which was the holy grail of the music industry. Biggest consumer market. You want to hit it in America. If you hit America, you are rich for life. Now, Mamma Mia peaked at number 32 in the United States. I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, and SOS both peaked at number 15 in America. Fernando peaked at number 13, but no number 1 hits. ABBA recorded Dancing Queen about a year before its release. It was written and recorded actually around the same time as Fernando, but Fernando was chosen as a single. They were pretty confident Dancing Queen would be a hit, so they held it until the album was released. And then once the album was released, they wanted to release that as the lead single. According to ABBA's website, in August 1975, ABBA were fresh off a summer tour of Sweden. But there was very little time to rest. After their breakthrough with Waterloo the previous year, the group had released their third album, simply titled ABBA, in the spring of 1975. The album yielded hits like SOS and Mamma Mia. However, in the 70s, most major acts were expected to release an album every year. So the Anderson UVS team was already working on new material. On August 4th, Bjorn and Benny entered Glen Studios, located in a Stockholm suburb where they would spend 2 days recording backing tracks together with the session musicians. Composition number 3 finally was titled Boogaloo, suggesting that it had something to do with dance rhythms, and indeed this was the song that would eventually become Dancing Queen. So a part of me wishes they left the title to Dancing Queen Boogaloo. That is hilarious. For inspiration, they turned to George McRae's 1974 disco hit Rock Your Baby, which was a pioneer recording within the disco genre. They added rhythmical influence on the drumming from the 1972 album Gumbo from Dr. John. A good solid backing track was put together for the song, consisting of drums, bass, guitar, and keyboards. As basic as it was, just this first stage of the recording was enough to provoke a strong emotional reaction from Frida. Benny came home with a tape of the backing track and played it for me, she recalled. I thought it was so enormously beautiful that I started to cry. I would play the song over and over again, Uvis told The Guardian, and I would literally see images of things coming up. So, just the sound of this song was bringing really strong emotions to members of ABBA, and already, like, the story was writing itself in their imagination. They were seeing this girl on the dance floor, so they had to figure out, okay, what's the story of this girl? What's going on? So, again, they listened to the backtrack over and over again. And the lyrics they wrote, they were sort of clumsy. They're words that a English speaker who grew up in an English-speaking country would probably never think to combine. Think of getting in the swing. You came to look for a king with a bit of rock music. Everything is fine. The music's high. You can dance. You can jive. But those words, even though they're a bit like clumsy, they do the job. They really do conjure that image of a girl on the dance floor losing herself in the music. Agnetha Faltskog later said, "It's often difficult to know what will be a hit. The exception was Dancing Queen. We all knew it was going to be massive." And it was indeed. Dancing Queen was a worldwide hit, topping the charts in more than a dozen countries, including ABBA's native Sweden, where it spent 14 weeks at the number 1 charting spot. The song's release also cemented ABBA as an international sensation and basically signified the beginning of their classic period, which the fans and critics basically spans the following 4 years. And even Queen Elizabeth II reportedly once said this about Dancing Queen. I always try to dance when this song comes on, because I am the queen and I like to dance. Even John McCain named it his favorite song of all time. He said, now look, everybody says, I hate ABBA. Oh, ABBA, how terrible, blah, blah, blah. How come everybody goes to Mamma Mia, huh? I mean, really, seriously, huh? I hate ABBA. They're no good, you know. Well, everybody goes. They've been selling out for years. And you know what? John McCain is damn right. And Queen Elizabeth, she is the queen. She likes to dance, and she is damn right. Dancing Queen was able to get Queen Elizabeth, John McCain, and the whole world behind that song because it's everything you want from a pop song. It's irresistible. And what John McCain's talking about there was, you know, Dancing Queen sometimes isn't taken seriously or it's seen as a joke of a song, and ABBA's seen as kind of this funny, eccentric group came out of nowhere from Sweden. But you know what? It took a lot of skill and talent to make this song, and if other groups could have done it, they would have, but they weren't able to. It needed that ABBA magic. The legacy of the song is, you know, it's been argued over, but The Guardian named it the best pop song of all time, and I think I might have to agree with that assessment. It's pop music operating at its peak. It's bright. It's catchy. You cannot be neutral with it. It's irresistible. It's like magnets that attract each other. Your ear hears that song, and it's just like, you're going. You're in all the way. And the lyrics, they're vague enough to reach mass appeal, but specific enough that it connects with an audience. And most importantly, it encapsulates the carefree bliss of youth. As Stereo Gum wrote, Dancing Queen isn't a song about apocalypse or even about romantic desolation. It's just a night out in a nightclub. But if you're 17, if a nightclub is the only place where you really feel at home, then the importance of that night is massive and all-consuming. It obliterates everything else. And I have to agree with that. When you're that age, music and your nights out are everything. And that feeling, that naive but really organic love is totally captured in this track. It's also got what all great pop songs have. It's got a great first line. First line, Friday night and the lights are low. Immediately, Friday night and the lights are low. You are transported to the image of that nightclub with that girl. You're dancing right alongside her. All great records start with a bang like that. And after that initial piano, it throws you right into the middle of the chorus before the song has officially started. You put your seatbelt on. You're like, okay, we're doing chorus right away. Let's do this. We're in for it. It's going to be a ride. And that sonic euphoria mirrors the freedom that the dance floor can bring. And it, even though it's a really euphoric and positive song, as with all ABBA songs, there's a hint of what Uwe has called that Nordic melancholic feeling to it. So it's got some depth to it. It's more than, you know, meets the eye on the surface. There's a layer of bittersweet sadness, I think, to it. It feels like it's being told, you know, as a memory from, you know, her future self, maybe reminiscing about times when she was more carefree, more happy. It's also a wedding party staple. There's weddings that play Dancing Queen, and there's weddings that suck. Also, Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia has made this song live on forever. I can attest to that. Many people close to me are obsessed with Mamma Mia. Shout out Bridget. Shout out Hannah. Shout out AG. Shout out all the Mamma Mia heads out there. It's a real deep love there. And, you know, it spun off 2 movies with the likes of Meryl Streep and Colin Firth called upon to capture that ABBA magic. If you need those caliber of actors to capture ABBA magic, then that tells you how powerful that magic is. Judy Kramer, who was the one who wrote it for both the stage and the screen, believes its success helped pass the music of ABBA on from generation to generation, and I think that's true to a degree. Because Dancing Queen is not only irresistible, it's immortal. After the break, we will get into Classic Album of the Week.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the show. As promised, we are getting into Classic Album of the Week. Last time we did this, we discussed Arctic Monkeys' debut album. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. Lovely discussion we had about that project. This week, we are going over Swimming by Mac Miller. Now, it is the second anniversary of Mac Miller's passing, so I thought, in a way to honor his memory and his music, he's someone that I really admired and is, to this day, one of my favorite artists. I thought a way to sort of honor his contributions to music would be taking a deep dive into his magnum opus, which is Swimming. So if you're not familiar with the project, maybe you've never even listened to Mac Miller, I think you're going to get something out of this album and his life story and his life journey that tragically ended way too soon. Now, it was released on August 3rd, 2018. It was the fifth studio album from Mac Miller, and the last one to be released during his lifetime. Production was handled by Miller himself, along with Dev Hynes of Blood Orange, J. Cole, and others, most importantly, John Bryan, who's one of his closest collaborators, especially from the production end. Swimming was supported by 3 singles: Small Worlds, Self-Care, and What's the Use. The album, it received pretty positive reviews from critics, and it debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. It was nominated for Best Rap Album at the 2019 Grammy Awards. In the lead up to the project, Mac had really begun mastering this R&B, jazzy, funky hip-hop sound that he had really started exploring with projects like Faces, which was a mixtape, and 2 albums, Good AM and The Divine Feminine. He started to collaborate with artists like Kendrick Lamar, Vince Staples, Thundercat, Earl Sweatshirt, Anderson .Paak. He was really expanding his own musical vocabulary, not only leaning into self-production under the pseudonym Larry Fisherman, but also with his flows, his song structures, and his voice. I mean, on Divine Feminine, he's singing nearly as much as he's rapping. So as his music grew, so did the allusions to drug abuse, depression, and most eerily, his death, both in the music itself and in interviews with press. I think of lyrics like, "I should have died already, came in, I was high already. To everyone who sells me drugs, don't mix it with that BS. I'm hoping not to join the 27 Club." Tragically, he didn't even join the 27 Club. He died at 26. So pretty eerie revisiting those lyrics. Kind of hard to listen to in light of his passing. But back to the project. Though he had already started working on Swimming as early as 2015, many critics assumed that it was about his breakup with Ariana Grande because the Divine Feminine was seen as about his love of Ariana Grande. They were in a relationship for about 2 years. They had a very public breakup and falling out. Shortly after, he was arrested for a DUI hit and run after crashing his car into a light pole in Los Angeles. And that was all in the aftermath of the breakup and the drug relapse that had basically caused the split. So Swimming is a journey into the mind of Miller at that moment. So somewhere sort of between unhappiness and contentment. Not exactly satisfied with where he is, but treading water in the meantime in the way that people tend to do after a significant breakup. By working on themselves. That is really what this album is about, working on yourself and the contradictions that come with that, but the journey that it entails nonetheless. Unfortunately, only a month after the album was released, Miller died on September 7th, 2018. From accidental alcohol, cocaine, and fentanyl overdose. In October 2019, 3 men were charged with conspiring and distributing the cocaine and fentanyl-laced oxy pills that led to Miller's death about a month after the release of Swimming. So it really was just right after he releases his magnum opus, he leaves us. It's super tragic and one that still hurts to this day. The album begins with the track Come Back to Earth, and the opening lines set the stage for the tone of the rest of the album, which is struggling between optimism for the future, contrasting with daily challenges of depression, isolation, and of course, addiction. The opening lines go, "My regrets look just like texts I shouldn't send. And I got neighbors, they're more like strangers, we could be friends. I just need a way out of my head. I'll do anything for a way out of my head." In his verse, he asserts, "And I was drowning, but now I'm swimming through stressful waters to relief." Sort of speaking to where Mac finds himself. He feels isolated from other people, but, knows that he could reach out and form positive relationships, positive interactions, but he's sort of paralyzed by his own depression and his own heartbreak. He just wants a way out of his head, and sometimes that's positively with music or with, spiritual growth, self-care, or sometimes it's in destructive methods that ultimately took his life through substances, through drugs. The second track, produced by J. Cole, Hurt Feelings, reveals a bit of how he was feeling the night before his DUI, and that feeling was mostly empty after a heartbreak and kind of numbing the pain with drugs, and that's what led to that. The third track, What's the Use, is kind of an attempt at lightening the mood. It's not only for the album, but in his head, in his state of mind. He's trying to lighten the mood after hurt feelings, drown on that, come back to earth. Very melancholy, very, depressed. What's the use is kind of like a nihilistic optimism that he's opting for. And it's a bouncy, funky, low-key disco jam. You get great backing vocals from Thundercat and Snoop Dogg, not to mention the exquisite Thundercat bass line that holds it together. This is really the album sonically at its best, just funky, jazzy. It's a groove you just dance to the first couple listens, and then, you see this kind of crippling sadness underneath it and pain, especially in light of his death. And after, a few listens, that really starts to come through. The following tracks, Perfecto and Self-Care, ponder both his addiction and failed relationship. Just both really great, groovy tracks. I cannot get over the instrumentation, just the music. If you didn't even have Mac Miller singing on this, just the sound of this record would have a personality all its own. It's alive. It's full of life. It fills the room. It is just fantastic, the instrumentation on this. Perfecto, Self-Care, both have that. Wings then follows, which is basically this neo-soul ballad where Miller feels like he may be finally hitting his emotional stride again. Song number 7, Ladders, finds the project at its most euphoric. It's truly a room-filling treat that contains explosive horn sections and grooves where Mac is likening his life to a journey on a ladder, full of hazards the higher he goes, but worth that climb nonetheless. This is kind of him really planting his flag and trying to be positive, trying to have a bittersweet view of his journey so far. Take account of the mistakes he's made, how dark it's been, but he's still moving forward. He's still climbing that ladder. And beyond the lyrical content on that, just so damn groovy. I urge you to watch the performance of this on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It is just one of the best live performances you'll see. And this one is bound to get people dancing and moving. It is a fantastic, fantastic song, just from a music perspective, and then the lyrics really elevate it all the more. Small Worlds, it's a somber but hopeful confessional with an assist on guitar from none other than John Mayer. As the song progresses toward the end, as the album progresses towards its end, we have more allusions to Ariana Grande, his demons that he's battling, and the one step forward, two steps back nature of his journey. In the penultimate track, 2009, Mac provides a tearjerker of a track full of spacious production with sparse piano keys that celebrates his hard-won wisdom. And the 2009 title is an illusion because 2009 is when his first mixtape, Kids, came out. That is what really blew up and, shot him into the stratosphere of fame. He's kind of reminiscing about his simpler times, but ultimately celebrating the wisdom that he's gained even through all the dark times. The final track, So It Goes. You get muted guitars, kind of simple, lazy synths, finds Miller sort of relinquishing the ideal of perfection and learning how to live with himself as he is or was. So It Goes, indeed. And this album is a classic because of Miller's power as a narrator. You really understand Mac. He is totally vulnerable, totally showing you his wounds, his scars. He's really opening his diary for all of us, and it's incredibly powerful. It's sad. It's exhilarating. It's thrilling. It's even funny at times. I don't want to overlook. There's Mac Miller is great sarcastic sense of humor, and that comes through on a lot of the songs here, but ultimately it's an emotional ride, and in light of his passing, it's hard not to cry or get emotional listening to some of the songs on this project, because you can just feel how much he was struggling with himself and his sense of self, and his demons. They were really strong. He was trying to get better. He was trying to improve. Or maybe in another light, maybe this was sort of an apathetic pep talk, a version that he wished he could have embraced, but ultimately was never able to fully adopt. His addictions ultimately conquered him, and yeah, you can look at it from that perspective. I take a more romantic, positive view. I really do think he was improving, had a lust for life, and he was trying to find himself again, and that really comes through with him as the narrator. Just such a powerful voice to follow on an album. It's very rare to find. Another strength of this album and why it's a classic is, as I've alluded to, it's the music. It takes that unique style that he had been sharpening for years and wraps it in jazz, funk, neo-soul, just dripping in grooves, man. It is lush, it's grand. It mixes beautifully with the more traditional contemporary hip-hop drum patterns and sounds. I mean, Mac was not only a rapper, he was a trained pianist, he played guitar, he played drums. He was a musician's musician, and that really comes through on this project. It is just, it's lush. It really is, the sounds on this, and something I can't help but revisit all the time. If they released just an instrumental version of this project, it would still be one of the best albums I've heard. It's just mastery. Additionally, he has these creative partnerships with Thundercat, Flying Lotus, Sid, J. Cole, Pharrell, Snoop Dogg, Dev Hynes, John Mayer. How many other artists could get those kind of collaborations and have it not feel like it's just to sell records, but to actually elevate the record and cultivate a sound? It's incredible. Also, Mac's singing is at its best, I think, in this. His lyrics, never more honest, never more vulnerable. And really, it's a 13-song journey towards self-acceptance. It doesn't really end in triumph and as an album, clearly not in life either. But it embraces the possibility that, he's never going to have it all figured out, but he's fine with that. He's sort of embracing the beautiful mystery of life. This really is touched upon in an interview he gave to Craig Jenkins, where he said, "The very beginning of my career was completely carefree. I felt invincible. I felt just zero sadness, for a moment. And then I've had all sadness, just all darkness. But I think being in a place where you can spend time in both and gain perspective on that other side makes you appreciate what each brings to the table. I really wouldn't want just happiness, and I don't want just sadness either. I don't want to be depressed. I want to be able to have good days and bad days. I feel like that's really important. I can't imagine not waking up sometimes and being like, I don't feel like doing anything. And then having days where you wake up and you feel on top of the world, and you get to experience both." He was sort of finally embracing the duality of the human experience, not fully getting too high, too low, really trying to find himself. And ultimately, he offers a cathartic quest, the motivation to develop self-love, heal, and grow. It's a message that so many fans gained and resonated with, and it's one that I hope all of you take away as well. Rest in peace, Mac Miller.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. We just got through Classic Album of the Week. Now we're going to go through 10 new songs of September that I think you should check out. These are my recommendations, but I think you guys are really going to rock with these songs. September is already zooming on by, so, next week I might have an additional 10 new songs for you, so don't procrastinate. Check these songs out right away. And to start things off, we have Hit Different from SZA. This is SZA's first song, I think in like 2 or 3 years. She's had this protracted battle with her record label, who's been delaying her releases. Also, she had a vocal injury, I believe. Something with her vocal cords wasn't all kosher. She had to take a break from singing, take a break from music. So it's been a long while since we heard SZA. Pleasant surprise. One of the, positive parts about 2020. Ty Dolla $ign features on the track here, so he continues his tradition of being the go-to feature artist. SZA dominates the verses, which are solid, and there's some nice vocal harmonies here. It's an easy listen. I don't think it's a fantastic song, but it's a good song. And just to hear SZA sing again is really positive. I missed her. Control is one of the best albums of the late 2010s. So, hopefully she's coming out with a new project soon. I assume this is a lead single off that project, but with SZA and her record label TDE, who knows? Hopefully it all gets sorted out. Number 2, Setch, Daddy Yankee, J Balvin, Rosalia, Relacion, the remix. Last year, Setch was nominated for Best Urban Song and Best Urban Fusion Performance at the 2019 Latin Grammy Awards. The Panamanian superstar teams up with super duper stars like J Balvin, Daddy Yankee, and Rosalia. They're all on the top of their game right now. And this song, it just knocks. This is a great party song. It's not that deep, but it gets the job done. It'll have you dancing. It'll have you bopping your head. And that's what they set out to do here. And Rosalia, as always, brings the heat. I think she might have the best performance on the whole thing. And, Daddy Yankee, he's still rapping out here. The man's been around for like 1,000 years at this point. Number 3, Phineas, What They'll Say About Us. Now, Phineas is Phineas O'Connell, a.k.a. Phineas, all caps, a.k.a. Billie Eilish's brother, a.k.a. Billie Eilish's producer, a.k.a. that guy with the funny name. He's released a new single entitled What They'll Say About Us. He said the song's inspiration came from attending a protest rally and reading the story of the late actor Nick Cordero. Some will overcome and wake up again, he said. Others, tragically, may not. This song is dedicated to all who have had to endure this year. I hope this song can offer some sort of comfort to those who may need it. It's a bit preachy, but it has some Coldplay, some James Blunt elements to it. So if you like those sort of artists, if you like that kind of sensibility, I urge you to check this song out. And it's just cool to see Phineas doing his own thing. Obviously, he's in the shadow of Billie Eilish, who is the biggest music star in the world right now. So that is definitely not easy to, live in the shadow of, even though he's, the producer for most of her work, and of course appreciates that too and sees that as confirmation of his talent. I'm sure his solo projects are, allows him, it's not a collaboration, it's more just what he wants. And I never heard him sing before. That was really interesting. He's surprisingly good. So, maybe we're going to see more from him in the future. Number 4, Anything from Adrienne Lenker. You got this overdubbed guitar, and you get these kind of snapshots of memories. On the page, her lyrics don't really seem that great, but in her really high, lonesome voice and kind of the way it's produced where there's background vocals of herself, it feels very intimate, it feels very vulnerable, and it's really a great song just about memory and about trying to make those memories live again and give them meaning and give them lasting importance. It's a beautiful indie song right there. I really enjoyed that. Number 5, Deep Reverence from Big Sean featuring Nipsey Hussle. This is off Big Sean's new album, Detroit 2. And he has Nipsey Hussle on this, who obviously tragically passed away. And they must have recorded this, well before his death, I assume. And apparently Nipsey's death really inspired Big Sean to get serious, to rethink his personal life, his career. He had this great interview with Craig Jenkins where he talked about mental health and how he was facing a bout of depression and sort of talking about the toxic masculinity that forced him to bury his emotions and led to some not so healthy coping mechanisms for when he was facing some ups and downs in life. And he really touches on that in this song. He references Nipsey Hussle, of course, and even references Kendrick Lamar, who there was rumors of beef between them, but he quashes that in this song. And he has great revealing lyrics like, should be a billionaire based on the time off I'm not taking, probably why everything around me got crazy and we lost the baby, he raps, presumably referencing a pregnancy that apparently wasn't successful, lost in a miscarriage. So that's pretty revealing, vulnerable stuff to be rapping about. And I've never seen Big Sean this human and honest. Honestly, I thought the guy was pretty shallow and just, frankly, uninteresting, uncreative, sort of the Fabulous of the 2010s. But, you know, if this is the direction he's going in, I think that makes him a lot more multidimensional and just, you know, gives him a vision and a voice that he hasn't really had before. Might have to revisit Detroit 2 for an album review, or at least an album discussion in a future episode. We'll see about that. But I really like the direction he's going in. And as always, it's great to hear from Nipsey Hussle. Dude taken way too soon. One of the most talented voices in hip-hop. Great verse here, as always. Number 6, Yellow Days, featuring Mac DeMarco. This one's called The Curse. It arrived with a music video that is pretty trippy. It's got a green screen that basically places him in this glitchy virtual world where, you know, he's talking to himself, he's talking to a psychiatrist, he's walking through empty forest, lots of trippy animations are happening. And the sound definitely complements the visuals. It is a trippy sort of sounding song, as a lot of Yellow Days songs are. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense that he'd work with Mac DeMarco. Mac DeMarco is definitely a big influence on Yellow Days. And they really complement each other on this song. Enjoyed that. So if you're into that sort of psychedelic indie sound, this is definitely one you want to check out. Number 7, Be an Astronaut by Declan McKenna. This is off his second album, Zeros, that sees him kind of embracing glam rock and David Bowie inspired sort of visuals, aesthetic, and songwriting. Now, McKenna was labeled the voice of a generation in the UK at only 19 years old after writing very topical tracks about suicide and immigration. But on this record, it looks like he's left that behind in favor of more ambiguous songwriting and ambitious musicality. Be an Astronaut features epic guitars with McKenna's impassioned piano and Bowie-like spacey lyrics. McKenna said, "I think Be an Astronaut covers the fear of what could become of us. I suppose The Crash follows it in the rest of the album, and I guess that relates to my fear of the future in this way, and in many ways, the concerns raised in the book Homo Deus." So, my guy's well-read. He's concerned about the future of the human species. But I will say the song itself is not as didactic or, sort of academic. It is very accessible. Sounds like something David Bowie would have written, or the Beatles in their more psychedelic stage. Really great song. He's a talented dude. I think this is another album that we may have to revisit in a future episode, because this was recently released and it's already getting rave reviews. Declan McKenna is still super young, but he's very talented. He's got a vision to him, and I like this glam rock corner he's carving out for himself. I don't know how many people are doing that right now, and he really fits in quite well. Number 8, Wonder by Lomelda. This is off her new album, Hannah, and that's already received plenty of praise. It was labeled Best New Music from Pitchfork. Now, this song has a noisy riff that basically provides the emotional foundation for her mantra to, quote, give it your all. Though you can tell she's still kind of struggling with that idea herself. It's a bit shoegazy indie, but It's quite poignant and quite emotional. I enjoyed it. If you're into that sort of thing, if you want a good cry, check that song out. Number 9, Main Man from Father John Misty. Heavy Elton John vibes, of course. He's been on a big Elton John kick as of late. They call him Elton Josh for a reason. This song was a bit over long, but, you know, I thought John Misty, he did a great job here. The songwriting is pretty on point, as it usually is with him. The instrumentation, yeah, it's very Elton John, 70s Elton John. It's kind of upbeat piano, but sort of a melancholy feeling behind it. I really like this track, though. Despite some of the weaknesses, I urge you to check that one out. And final song for you guys, If You Want Me to Stay, from Ari Lennox and Anthony Ramos. They partnered actually with Crown Royale to cover this song that was originally a hit for Sly and the Family Stone back in 1973. So Crown Royale, in partnership with the Main Street Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization committed to sort of helping small businesses, they partnered with Crown Royale to donate $1 for every stream to help the landmark small businesses and communities that are hurting right now all over the country due to the pandemic. And it's for a great cause, and the voices here, the performances, they coalesce into a great little harmony. Great individual performances from them as well. Old school sound, but it still sounds alive, full of energy. If you're not familiar, Ramos is best known for his role in the Broadway hit Hamilton, and he's also showcased in his debut album from 2019, The Good and the Bad. And Ari Lennox is signed to J. Cole's Dreamville Records. She's one of the more interesting talents in R&B right now. Just a great feeling you'll have after listening to this song. And you're supporting, a good cause, which is awesome. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review. That really helps us out. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.